The library felt different that afternoon. The golden light poured through the arched windows as always. But now it seemed sharper, more insistent, catching her hair, illuminating the curve of her cheek, making every ordinary movement feel extraordinary. Elara's heart pounded with a strange mix of excitement and nervous anticipation as she stepped between the familiar rows of books. She wasn't just wandering today. She was searching, though, for what she couldn't quite name. And then she saw him. Mr. Alaric was leaning against a shelf, arms crossed, eyes focused on a worn, leather-bound volume. When he glanced up and caught her gaze, something electric passed between them, a flicker that lingered too long to be casual. "Ah, Elara," he said, his voice smooth, with that patient warmth that always seemed to calm her, even as it made her pulse quicken. "I was hoping you'd be here today." She felt her cheeks flush. "I thought I'd start that poetry series you suggested," she stammered, holding her notebook closer as if it could shield her from the intensity in his gaze. He smiled, a small, knowing curl of the lips that made her stomach twist. "Good. I think you're ready for something more challenging." He handed her the book, fingers brushing hers ever so slightly. A spark ignited, subtle but undeniable, and she pulled the book closer to her chest, pretending to study its cover. The library seemed to shrink around them, the familiar aisles of shelves dissolving into a private universe, charged with anticipation. "Follow me," he said softly, and she obeyed, moving through the stacks like a dream. They stopped in a quiet corner she had never noticed before, where sunlight spilled across a pair of her backed chairs. He handed her a passage from the book, and they read together. Their voices mingled, low and intimate, and for the first time, Elara noticed the tremor in her own words, not fear, but a delicious tension, a hunger for connection. She dared to glance at him, and he was watching her. Eyes bright with something that felt like admiration but lingered somewhere deeper, warmer. Then suddenly a loud crash echoed from the aisle nearby. A tower of books had toppled, scattering across the floor. Elara gasped and jumped back, and he reached for her hand instinctively. Her heart thundered not from the fall, but from the unexpected brush of his fingers holding hers. "Are you all right?" he asked, concern etched in every line of his face. Yes," she whispered, barely breathing, her hand still in his. The library was no longer just a sanctuary, was a stage for stolen moments, accidental touches, and the thrill of vulnerability. They knelt together to pick up the fallen books, their knees brushing. Every small contact set her nerves alight, every shared glance threading tension through the air between them. He laughed softly at a misread title, and she laughed too, heart-fluttering in a way that was entirely new, entirely consuming. When the last book was returned to the shelf, they stood facing each other. His hand lingered just above hers, the smallest hesitation a pause that felt like the world holding its breath. "Elara," he said, voice low, almost a whisper, "you're remarkable." She felt warmth rise to her cheeks, heat spreading in a way that had nothing to do with the sun. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," he replied. "Just be here. That's enough." And in that suspended moment, the library wasn't just a collection of books, it was a world where hearts raced, possibilities shimmered, and a quiet, intense connection was beginning to take shape. As she walked home later, the streets seemed to hum with electricity, every shadow and glint of light reminding her of him. She realized that her quiet crush had deepened into something more potent, something that made her imagine stolen moments, whispered conversations, and the thrilling possibility of love that was as tender as it was consuming. By the time she reached her apartment, she was trembling not from fear, but from desire, from anticipation, from the undeniable pull of something that could change everything. She clutched her notebook to her chest, already planning tomorrow's visit, already craving the next chapter in their story. The city outside was ordinary, but inside her, a storm of emotion had begun, a storm that promised romance, intensity, and the kind of connection that makes life feel alive, fragile, and unforgettable.